The NBA currently has a total of 30 teams, 29 in the US and only 1 in Canada, the Toronto Raptors. But why does the NBA only have 1 team in Canada? Back in 1995, the NBA announced 2 international expansion teams, the Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies. There were 2 major team building events that were to be held before the season started. One was the expansion draft, in which both teams would take turns selecting an underwhelming group of unprotected players from other NBA franchises. And the other event was the NBA draft, which both teams would have the opportunity to participate in. The Grizzlies general manager at the time, Stu Jackson, won a coin flip and got the opportunity to choose whether he wanted the higher pick in the rookie draft or the expansion draft. He selected to take the higher pick in the 1995 NBA rookie draft, which gave the Grizzlies the 6th overall pick. With the pick, the Grizzlies drafted a 7-foot, close to 300-pound center named Bryant Big Country Reeves.
With the 6th pick in the 1995 NBA draft, the Vancouver Grizzlies select Bryant Reeves from Oklahoma State University.
Long story short, Bryant Reeves was not that good and did not pan out. But since they marketed him so highly to their new fan base, they were stubborn about admitting their mistakes when he wasn't performing. Instead of being honest with themselves, they decided to double down on their bet and sign Reeves to a massive 6-year, $65 million contract extension at age 24. The deal then hampered the Grizzlies' ability to assemble a competent roster. Meanwhile, the Raptors weren't much luckier with their first pick either. They selected BJ Armstrong, who refused to report to the team because he didn't want to play in Canada, and other players decided to follow suit and not play in the northern country. Steve Francis, a star point guard prospect that the Grizzlies drafted with the 2nd overall pick in 1999, demanded a trade too after being selected by Vancouver.
You said specifically that you didn't want to go to Vancouver. What were some of the reasons behind that?
No guarantee that I will be having the basketball in my hand as a rookie. And throughout my career, as you see, I needed the basketball in my hand.
Yep.
To be on the bench my rookie year in Canada would have been a mess for me.
The demand also reportedly stemmed from an incident in the Vancouver airport where an attendant asked Francis and his entourage if they were part of a, quote, rap group. Other reports indicate that Francis had no intention in playing in Canada before the incident and used the airport debacle as an excuse. All the bad press indicated that American-born players weren't interested in playing in Canada. At this point, the expansion is not going great, but there were several reasons why players didn't want to play up north. One factor is the cold weather that plagues Canada for up to 6 months of the year. On top of that, players are forced to go through international customs constantly, a hassle that adds up when you're traveling back and forth through an 82-game season. But if that's not bad enough, Canadian athletes that make millions of dollars are in a relatively higher tax bracket than those same players would be in if they played in the USA. All of these factors combined made it difficult to attract talent north of the border. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a privilege to play in the NBA, but would you have liked playing in Canada at the time, especially as a rookie, away from family and friends? I personally would not. I would love your perspective in the comments. But other financial challenges hindered the Vancouver Grizzlies too. One of the most significant financial challenges was the unfavorable currency exchange rate between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. The US dollar at times was worth over 50% more than the Canadian dollar. This meant they had to spend a more significant portion of their revenue to cover expenses that they were expected to pay in US dollars, leaving less for other investments in the team. The Grizzlies had to pay player salaries as well as various operational expenses in US dollars. However, the revenue generated from ticket sales, sponsorships, and merchandise was collected in Canadian dollars. This created a constant currency exchange dilemma for the Grizzlies. Clearly, operating an NBA franchise over the border isn't an easy business model to execute on. All these factors added up to the Grizzlies losing a substantial amount of money year after year and eventually getting bought out from another owner and relocating to Memphis in the year 2001. It seemed like the Grizzlies weren't really set up for success, especially as a new team to the league. It's sad because personally, I absolutely love the Vancouver Grizzlies logo and design. Tell me, is this one of the best NBA logos of all time? Would love your thoughts. But in contrast to the Grizzlies, the Toronto Raptors have managed to become extremely successful. But what went so differently in Toronto? The two teams went on separate paths in the 1998 NBA draft. The Grizzlies, who had the 2nd overall pick, drafted Mike Bibby. Though Bibby was a talented point guard, he wasn't nearly as gifted as some of the players that the Grizzlies could have selected at number 2, such as Dirk Nowitzki, Paul Pierce, and Vince Carter. But I guess hindsight is 2020. On the other hand, at number 5, the Raptors drafted Vince Carter, and the young high-riser completely changed the future of the Raptors organization.
20 from downtown this year, 20 of the... Oh! Vince Carter! The lob. The fans, and a jailbreak for the Raptors, counted 4-on-1 up top.
He became an all-star and reached pop culture status with his electrifying playing style. Not only did he lead the Raptors to their first 2 playoff appearances in 2000 and 2001, he put on a show with his all-time highlight reel dunks. Vince Carter became known as the greatest dunker of all time. Then in 2001, the Raptors beat the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs, but fell short to the 76ers in a 7-game second-round series. There was no doubt that the Raptors had arrived. Eventually, Vinsanity demanded a trade out of Toronto, but not before the Raps selected a star to take on the reins in the form of Chris Bosh.
Toronto Raptors select Chris Bosh from Georgia Tech University.
Bosh helped the Raptors remain competitive. He was voted as a league all-star in 5 consecutive seasons for the Raptors, starting when he was just 21 years old. Bosh even led the Raps to back-to-back playoff appearances in 2007 and 2008. He never won a playoff series in Canada before winning 2 championships with the Miami Heat, but he did enough to sell jerseys and put fans in the seats. Then 2013 marked a turning point for the Raptors franchise. The team brought in Masai Ujiri to become the new general manager. However, it took a while for his vision to come to life for the Raptors. LeBron James and the Cavs were dominating the Eastern Conference and the Raptors specifically year after year. And I'm telling you, it felt like LeBron owned the Raptors back then.
LeBron has been so disrespectful to the Toronto Raptors throughout really his entire career. Remember when he was spitting the ball in front of Serge Ibaka during the Eastern Conference Finals? Well, guess what? After that game 1, he said, yeah, this is probably one of my worst games of the season, after he had ripped the beating heart out of the Raptors in game 1.
However, when LeBron signed with the LA Lakers, which is in the Western Conference, in 2018, Ujiri sensed a window of opportunity. Kawhi Leonard, one of the best players in the NBA at the time, had demanded a trade out of San Antonio and made it clear that Los Angeles was his preferred destination. The Raptors front office felt that if they could get Kawhi for 1 year, they could potentially win a championship. So Ujiri made the extremely risky move to trade a package built around his team's best player, DeMar DeRozan, in exchange for 1 year of a potentially disgruntled Kawhi Leonard. And boy, did the gamble pay off.
There's a new NBA champion, and it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions, the Raptors, the 2019 NBA champs.
Kawhi Leonard had an iconic season in Toronto and led a hungry supporting cast to their first ever NBA title in 6 games over the Golden State Warriors. Let me repeat that. Their first ever championship in franchise history. But what was craziest about the run was the Toronto Raptors fan base. They didn't just have a city backing them, they had an entire country. It put Canada's love for basketball that had been rising for decades since the Vince Carter days on the map. American fans got to see that they weren't the only ones who loved their teams. Merchandise, ticket sales, and broadcasting revenues gave the Raptors organization the opportunity to soar. Even though Kawhi Leonard left the following season, the culture has stuck.
We've been growing and tried to prove to the world that there's a meaning to having an NBA team, one NBA team outside the US. And all these guys, these players, they've been unbelievable, to our coaches, to our ownership, and much respect to the Golden State Warriors and to Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. We love you as NBA players. But we wanted to win in Toronto, and we have won in Toronto! Yeah!
Drake has also taken on the role of team ambassador and has helped popularize the Raptors brand. Nowadays, players are becoming more aware of the benefits of playing in an amazing city like Toronto. In 2022, the Raptors generated close to $300 million in revenue, right in line with the other organizations in the league. And the Raptors' impact has given guidance to a whole generation of basketball stars being developed out of the country. Not too long ago, Steve Nash was the only notable Canadian basketball star in the league. Now, prospects out of Canada are being selected with lottery picks every single season. Andrew Wiggins, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, Dillon Brooks, and many, many more give Canadian basketball fans plenty to cheer about. Not to mention, Canada won their first ever international medal by defeating the US in the bronze medal game at the FIBA World Cup, and they'll be one of the favorites to win the tournament at the 2024 Olympics in Paris. And who knows, maybe with all this hype, it's time to take a look at giving the country another opportunity with an expansion team. Do you think Vancouver should get an NBA team again, or would it take the special spotlight away from Toronto? We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. If you could leave a like on this video, I would love that. Thank you for watching and have an amazing day.